Hi, I'm Danny Ramos, and welcome to Hispanics SpeakOut TV, your community affairs show in the Hispanic community. Hispanics SpeakOut TV is brought to you by the Hispanic Achievers. It's the only Hispanic community show done in the English language on Bright House Channel 21. The purpose of this program is to bring to light various issues that affect the Hispanic community so the bilingual community can learn about certain issues that are happening in the Hispanic community, and non-Hispanics can learn about the Hispanic community. More recently, we've had some very interesting programs. The past 3 weeks, we've done a show on the scandal having to do with the mayor's incubator, Hispanic incubator, that potentially involved millions and millions of dollars. And now we're doing an investigative report on a particular city official, Jose Fernandez. And Jose Fernandez has been Mayor Dyer's right-hand man. He was the city clerk, and now he is the director of Hispanic policy in the city. Certain information has been sent to our office regarding Mr. Fernandez and certain things about him that we are going to present during this show to the community. You can come to your own conclusions. We present only facts. We do not present anything that is not true. And if you have a comment about what we are presenting, we certainly invite you to email us at nhca@bellsouth.net. Also, if you have information to send us, please do. And if you wish to come on the show and voice your own opinion, this show is available to all community organizations and community leaders to voice whatever they'd like to say, which is within the reality of facts. Regarding Mr. Fernandez presently works at City Hall. Mr. Fernandez is probably considered one of the top Hispanics in City Hall from the Dyer administration. And in a few minutes, we will be talking to a person here in our studio. We've had to disguise this person's voice. This person is a former board member and or employee of the HBIF and had direct contact with Mr. Fernandez during a particular period of time. During that period of time, this board member or employee has brought to light certain facts which we felt the community should know about. Now, I was addressed by one or two people in the community, and they told me, why are you saying something negative about a Hispanic? We're not supposed to be saying anything negative about a Hispanic because that shows the negative side of the community. Well, if a person acts contrary to the well-being of the community, I think it is the duty of every Hispanic to point that out so that we can do course corrections, and people who behave contrary to the well-being of the community know that there is at least one media or other medias that will stand forth and bring this to light. The pattern in Central Florida has been that Hispanic medias many times don't cover issues that are controversial about Hispanic officials or Hispanic leaders because it may bring negativity, a negative image to the Hispanic community. We take a different position. Our position is simply, if they did it and they can be proud of it, then why not say it? And if you can say something that someone can be proud of, then we should say something about when someone has negative behavior. In this particular case, we leave it up to you to decide whether this is a positive or negative situation. In a moment, we will bring this person, again, former HBIF employee and or board member, who has a lot to say about certain things that have happened at the HBIF and Jose Fernandez. You come to your own conclusions based upon what you hear here. However, I want you to know, I want the audience to know, that everything that we say here is factual and is backed up by documentation. There is nothing here which is opinionated. This is a factual program. I am not a columnist, nor do I want to be a columnist, like a newspaper columnist that forms their thoughts around their own opinions. This show, in order to maintain its credibility, is a weekly community news broadcast. So in a moment, we will address this individual who remains to be anonymous. However, in the event that someone challenges the authenticity of what is being said, this person will come forward. This person has not come forward directly at this point because they do business in the Hispanic community. And the person is afraid that if they come forward directly, it will affect their long-term business prospects and short-term income. So this person right now will be facing me, the back of the head to the camera. We'll be back in a minute so that you can meet this person and we can talk about these issues that are very, very interesting. See you in a minute. Danny Ramos. Hi, it's Danny Ramos and I'm back. I'm seated with, for the sake of this broadcast, Miss Hernandez, or Mrs. Hernandez. That's not her real name. She is, we're using the name Hernandez to protect her identity. However, the documents that you will see are actual documents. If anybody challenges the facts of what this person is saying, we would be glad to individualize a meeting and even put these documents, and the person has agreed to even go to court to testify that they have said what they are saying on this broadcast. Okay. First, Mr. Fernandez worked at the HBIF. He was president of the HBIF until the year 2003. In 2003, and I believe it's March 17th, he began working at City Hall as the city clerk. Now, the HBIF receives city funds. On May 17th, Mr. Fernandez cashed a check from the HBIF for $5,000 for services rendered. Now, again, he started working at the city. He left the HBIF and began work at the city. And this has been verified by a woman called Geraldine in the Department of Human Resources before this broadcast. Mr. Fernandez started work at City Hall as city clerk on March 17, 2003. In May 2003, the HBIF gave Mr. Fernandez a check for $5,000, which he cashed on May 17. Now, the HBIF is city funded. So what we have here is a city official, technically a city official, okay, who received a $5,000 payment from a city-funded not-for-profit organization, which he was no longer employed at. I'd like to show you that check on the screen. Now, this check was made from the HBIF to a corporation called Church Fernandez Associates. The check was not made out directly to Jose Fernandez while he was city clerk. It was made out to a corporation called Church Fernandez Associates, which was registered in Tallahassee, Department of Corporations. When we followed up, we will show you the incorporation paper, the incorporation file of Church Fernandez Associates in Tallahassee at the Department of Corporations. As you can see by the indication of the highlight, the incorporation was made during a time period that he was working for the city. Now, the check that was made out to Mr. Fernandez, this check was made out not directly to Mr. Fernandez, but it was made out to Church Fernandez. Now, why would a city official have a corporation if he's a full-time employee and then have the HBIF make a check out to a corporation instead of having the check directly made out to him? When we looked up who the treasurer was of the corporation, the treasurer of this corporation was Mr. Fernandez himself, and his wife was president of the corporation. Again, take a look at the incorporation filing papers. So let's do a little recap. What we have is a check which was filed, which was cashed in May, while Mr. Fernandez was a city official, from the HBIF that's city funded, a non-profit organization. Now, to go a little bit further, I have spoken to Christian Palacios, who's the president of the HBIF at this time, and I did request from Ms. Palacio documentation about that $5,000 check. And Ms. Palacio answered some questions for me over the phone. My question: did Mr. Fernandez receive any monies from the HBIF in the past 4 years? Palacios: no, he did not get any money from the HBIF in that time. Ramos: I heard about a check for $5,000 that was paid out to him. Palacios: oh, I know about the check you're talking about. That was for a contract that was issued to him. Can you make the contract available since you are a not-for-profit? Palacios: no, you cannot see the contract. Now, that was the day before yesterday. I followed up and I spoke to Mercy McCall. Now, Mercy McCall of Banco Popular is the chair of the HBIF. And I sent an email to Mercy McCall, and that email read, "In the near future, we are planning to do a show about Jose Fernandez. Since he is the vice chair of the HBIF, and he's still the vice chair of the HBIF while he is a city official, and you are the chair, I wanted to specifically know if he reported to you about a check or checks that were drawn from the HBIF funds, city funds, to him and or a corporation that he owned and served as treasurer with his wife as president. I need to know your position officially for the broadcast. Thanks." I got an email back 3 hours later, and it said, and it was from Kristen Palacios, again president of the HBIF. At the request of Mrs. Mercedes F. McCall, HBIF chair, enclosed please find the agreement adopted by the board of directors. This agreement was fully analyzed and, remember the term analyzed, and agreed to the terms proposed in connection with anticipated services that were to be provided by Mr. Jose Fernandez. Both parties and the HBIF and Mr. Fernandez fully complied and performed under the terms of this agreement. A little bit later, she sent me a copy of the contract. I was surprised to get a copy of the contract email. I sent her back an email saying, "Thank you very much for the contract. I really appreciate your cooperation. Can you please tell me who was the attorney of record and who made the contract, and who is the attorney of record for the HBIF?" The reason why I asked that question is because after looking at the contract, I noticed on the front of the contract, it says this agreement made and entered into as of the day blank, and there was nothing in that slot. There was no day blank, no date. Of such and such a day, blank, in 2003. So they left out two very important information pieces right on the second line of the contract. As you go down the contract, there is no signature on this contract. The contract says, agreed to Hispanic Business Initiative Fund of Greater Orlando, Inc., by Linda Landman Gonzalez, chairman. There is no signature under Linda Gonzalez, and there is no date under her name where she was supposed to have signed it, but there is no signature. And then under the consultant part, where it says Churches Fernandez and Associates, by Iris Fernandez, president, there is no signature there either, and there is no date. Okay? And this is the actual contract, and there are no signatures on this contract at all. Okay? So the contract, I guess it's not a fully executed contract. There are no dates, with the exception of one date within the contract context, within the body of this contract itself, and that date is March 17th. And it says this agreement shall become effective March 17th, 2003 until April 16th, 2003. Those were the only two dates that were in the body of the contract, but no dates in the front and absolutely no signatures on this contract whatsoever. I did send another email to the HBIF requesting who the attorney was that made up this contract and who is the attorney for the HBIF. I still have not gotten a response from the HBIF regarding that question. Now, as far as when Mr. Fernandez started his job as a city official, that was March 17th. So he started working at the city as the city clerk on March 17th, 2003, and it coincides with the actual date of the contract within the body of the contract when this contract started. So this contract was issued when he was actually working for the city. And he was paid $5,000 while he was the city clerk. So let me put this a little clearer for you. Jose Fernandez leaves the HBIF, goes to work for Mayor Dyer as the city clerk. When he leaves the HBIF, he gets a contract the day he leaves for 30 days. While he is working as the city clerk, he is supposed to be working for the HBIF. Then in May, while he's city clerk and well after he left, He started, remember, working at the City of Orlando on March 13th. In May, he receives a $5,000 check from the HBIF made out to a corporation called Church Fernandez, of which his wife was president and he was treasurer. That check was cashed on May 17th. Now, what is the conflict here? Well, some people say there is no conflict. If you talk to people at the HBIF, hey, it's perfectly okay. Some people say there is a conflict of interest here because you are working, and the reason why there may be a conflict of interest because he's working as city clerk. He's an official of the City of Orlando. And then the City of Orlando funds a nonprofit from which he gets $5,000 back from this nonprofit that's being funded by the City of Orlando back into a corporation of which he and his wife are the controlling factor, and he is the signee on all the checks. Now, at this particular point, you have to come to your own conclusions whether that sounds okay to you or not. I'm not going to make the judgment here. That's for the legal bodies to make a judgment. But to me, when you have a nonprofit organization collecting money from the city, of which Jose Fernandez was the top Hispanic at the time, and then that nonprofit organization is sending money back to him personally from city funds, well, if that money came from the city, which everyone knows the HBIF is city funded, then I am making the assumption that those are city funds, and those city funds went back into Jose Fernandez's pocket while he was a city official. To me, there may be a conflict of interest there. What do you think? You can email me at nhca@bellsouth.net. Now we're going to talk to a little bit to this person. By the way, anybody who wants copies of these checks, a copy of the check, I have a photocopy of it that was sent to me by this particular board member and or former employee. And we can make those checks available to you so that you can actually get a copy for yourself. Again, we are not alleging that something took place that's illegal here. All we are doing is presenting you with facts. You have to evaluate the facts, whether there was misconduct or whether there was unethical business done here. That's up to you. Whether it was criminal or not, or the law has been broken, that's up to law enforcement. That's not up to me. I'm presenting facts here, and that's what I'm doing, just facts. Now we're going to talk to Mrs. Hernandez, who was the former employee or board member of the HBIF, who will talk for a few minutes, and then we hope to get her back next week again, because this is going to be a two-part show, to talk about some of the things that happened at the HBIF. Mrs. Hernandez, I have a question for you regarding a Ramon Alonso. He was a former board member of the HBIF, and I understand there was a conflict with him and the Champa chapter. What happened? Tell me about, in brief, what happened with Ramon Alonso.
Well, Ramon Alonso was a board member and president of HBIF Tampa, and he wrote a check for a political campaign in Tampa. Fernandez knew about it. Ramon Alonso, while he's in the board of directors of Orlando, he also does a check as member of the staff in Tampa. But indeed, the HBIF, it was an HBIF check.
During Jose Fernandez's political campaign in District 49, did he ever stop receiving his paycheck from the HBIF while he was campaigning, and was the HBIF office ever used for campaign purposes?
Jose's pay never ceased while he was doing his campaign for the District 49, State Representative District 49. In fact, his $72,000 a year, which, as odd as it might seem, is 13% of the budget at the time. The budget at the time was about $550,000, and Jose's pay continued throughout the campaign.
Mrs. Hernandez, were checks ever paid to other board members? I understand that in the bylaws of the HBIF, board members can be reimbursed, but there is a question as to whether they can actually be hired for services. Were checks ever issued to board members for those purposes?
There were several checks paid board members. For example, Luis Martinez, he's the treasurer of the board. Because of the services that he provides for accountants, etc., he got paid. He gets paid for those services, and that is probably in excess of $10,000 to $12,000 a year. There's a biweekly check that he gets paid for that. In addition to that, there were members of the technical committees that received the various checks as well, based on the friendship that they held with Mr. Fernandez.
Mrs. Fernandez, who actually authorized the check for $5,000 to be issued to Jose Fernandez while he was a city official from city funds that were given to the HBIF?
Well, the primary person that authorized the check was Linda Gonzalez. At the time, she was a chairperson for the HBIF, and as I understand, and I investigated, the check was processed within an hour from the first call being Linda Gonzalez's call. There was a second call generated, and it was Jose Fernandez looking to expedite the payment. The signatures of the checks, the signatures were executed, and the check was delivered to Jose Fernandez all within an hour and a half.
Mrs. Hernandez, there is a company called KDR Photo, and I understand that KDR Photo received funds from the HBIF, and I also understand that I spoke to a person at Orlando Weekly, and they told me that the amount of money that was paid to KDR Photo for photo services was greater than the annual budget of the Orlando Weekly newspaper. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, KDR Photo got paid in excess of $7,000 for services rendered to HBIF. As odd as it may seem, he is a good friend of Jose Fernandez, a political supporter, and at that particular time, also a member of one of the committees in HBIF, more specific, the Technical Assistance Committee.
We're going to end this show right now, and we will be back next week, permitted that the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States is not interrupted. This is Danny Ramos from Hispanics SpeakOut TV. We will see you next week with more information from the community. And one more thing. Just because a person is Hispanic, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't report on Hispanics. This show's job is to report on the Hispanic community, the good and the bad. And we will continue to do so under the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Thank you, and I will see you next week. Danny Ramos.